Welcome everyone to Throwback Gaming's Let's Play of Our Life Beating as always, part 26. Last time we started, summer ends for part 2 and we ended off at lunchtime. So let's finish this up so we can get to the beginning of step 3 for the creation screen. So let's jump in, shall we? It's almost lunchtime. I think I'll put something special together. Her eyes sparkled with a plan and Mom smiled. I bet you could use some help with that. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Derek glanced between the two, his eyebrows furrowed. Is there something I can do to help? Your mom's exchanged a fond expression. Ma shook her head. It's very sweet, Derek, but it's alright. It's not your job. Technically, your dad left you under Cliff's watch. You're meant to be taken care of by him, not doing chores for the neighbors. Mom laughed a little over her own joke. You watched Derek look away, discouraged. It's okay, I don't mind. He was a little bashful about it. He wondered if Mom's joke had just reminded him that he wasn't initially meant to be invited to lunch. It was getting a little awkward. Mom grinned sympathetically. Her comment was meant to lighten the mood, not bring it down. She tried again to get things going. Why don't you kids go have fun? You can all come back in about an hour. We'll make enough for everyone. Mom nodded in agreement. Another stunning idea, Lonnie. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. It sounds like a plan then. I don't want to cramp your style. I got some stuff to work on, so I'll be out of your hair this afternoon. You should come out later too. No reason you should be the odd man out. Mom seemed amused by Cliff rubbing his neck nervously. He grinned, a wavering but pleasant smile.
Thanks very much.
I appreciate the invite. He looked over the assembled crowd with knowing glances. I can help too, with as many people as you're feeding. That's going to be a lot of food. Didn't you hear what we told Derek? It wouldn't be fair to make you cook when we're the ones inviting you in. Ma raised an eyebrow when Cliff waved it off. I insist. Derek would be missing time with his pals. This would be a break for me. I'm quite the chef. Ma and Mom exchanged further glances before Mom shrugged. An airtight argument. If you're sure, we'll be happy to have you, Chef Cliff. Cliff's grin widened and seemed more hyped than you expected him to be about helping with lunch. Cove shook his head, a fond smile on his face. He's like, that's my dad. Then all of us grown-up people will be heading inside. I assume the rest of you kiddos will be staying out? Maybe not all of them. Ma tilted her head, a silent question for Elizabeth. Your sister thought for a moment. I'll stay with the kids. That's great. Both your moms smiled at her, while Derek and Cove didn't seem to appreciate her phrasing. She called us kids. But with the plan decided, all three parents waved and headed for your house. It was just you teenagers now. Elizabeth looked at you and the others, a curious expression on her face. So, what now? You silently wondered if Elizabeth only stayed out with you to avoid getting roped into work. I could see her doing that. Then again, she could just genuinely want to hang out. You couldn't tell with your sister. Cove spoke up after no one else did answer Elizabeth's question. Want to go down to the shopping street? It's been a while, and I don't think there's a lot of other things we could agree on. Yeah, sure. Awesome, sounds good to me. Unlike you guys, I haven't been there 1,001 times. It's new to me. Let's do it. Okay, if you guys want to. There's nothing else to do. Sure, let's go for it. You strolled across the road as a group, down to the beach, and then to the left. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive, one of the conveniences of Sunset Bird. The four of you looked around the familiar shops, trying to see if anything caught your attention this time. Derek was the most enthusiastic. He checked out every stall with his eyes wide with wonder. Elizabeth and Cove were in good spirits as well. Well, that's good, because they usually don't get along so well. That's so cool. He ran over to a street magician who was currently doing a card trick for a group of enchanted tourists. Derek clapped when the magician showed a middle-aged man his card. Derek turned back to the group with a curious gleam on his face. I wonder if it's the same dude. What does it take to perform here anyway? Do you have to ask somebody, or do you just show up and start doing stuff? Who would you even ask? It's a public street. Hey, Mrs. Mayor, can I pull a rabbit out of my hat, please? Flopsy is so well behaved, I promise. Her sarcasm is strong. Derek chuckled, his eyes searching up and down the scene. Maybe there's a boss of the shopping district. No one does any of this around my neighborhood. It's just regular streets before, regular stores behind walls. It's different if someone wants a real store, but here I'm pretty sure people just put on the little shows whenever they want to and do whatever. That's so neat. Would we be allowed to do something too? Cove laughed and Derek almost began vibrating with excitement. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. What would we do? Well, I don't know yet. I mean, I just found out it's a possibility, you know? He's so optimistic. It's good. But there's gotta be something. You know, cool stuff. I'm sure if we think about it, we could plan a show that really get the crowd pumped. You thought it was a great idea and you want to be part of it. You felt he could try his own idea on his own. You thought Derek needed to abandon the bad idea stat. Or you gave a look at the other two. Let's see what they think. Derek continued to brainstorm out loud about different potential performances while you glanced over at Cove and Elizabeth. I mean, I can bounce a soccer ball in my head. Last time I tried, I got 8 bounces before it fell. I wouldn't bring a ball here. Yeah, not a good idea. Why not? Cove gestured everything around. The stalls, the people, all the colorful chaos that made up the shopping street. Would you want to chase a lost ball here? And what if you hit somebody? Even if you're good, someone could bump into you. These are all valid statements. That's true. Derek thought about it some more. Then he watched another performer, a woman doing tricks with 2 small dogs. One was fluffy and cream-colored, while the other was a cool gray. The woman held up rings. Both animals jumped through the openings, happy to receive a treat at the end. Derek brightened. Maybe I'll teach crabs how to race. What? Crabs? It could work. With some amusement, the gang continued to peruse the stalls. Elizabeth found some earrings with a dangling, badly misprinted globe that everyone laughed at. Cove picked up a blop as Iceland, but Derek thought it had to be Greenland. I think they're right next to each other. You know, this is a world with what looks like 9 continents. I think you're both wrong. You wanted to side with Cove, you backed up Derek, you agreed to be your sister. No, it's Australia, or you stayed out of it. We'll side with Cove. It looks like Iceland to me. Right? Suddenly, Cove froze. You stared at him and then tried to see what caught his attention. When you saw a familiar face down the way, it all made sense. Between the crowds, his bright hair stood out like a neon green bowl in a kitchen sink. It was Jeremy. Okay, cue scary music. Dun dun dun! Jeremy slowly drifted his eyes down the street, and his eyes widened in mutual recognition. He definitely noticed you. Oh no, it's about to go down. Derek frowned at Cove, tensing up. You couldn't help but remember the last time you had seen Jeremy at Miranda's birthday party. No wonder Cove was already defensive. I know, he's a butt. You stood there shocked, you glared at Jeremy, you waved at Jeremy, you decided to smile at Jeremy, you looked away. We'll just look away. Maybe if we act like we didn't see him, he'll leave us alone. You didn't want to even start with Jeremy's shenanigans today. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Her gaze swept over Jeremy without a hint of a clue. I don't think she only met him one time, so she don't know about him. Jeremy simply scuffed off to himself and waded deeper into the crowd of people. Derek relaxed and exhaled loudly. I'm glad he's not going to start anything. He peeked over to Elizabeth with a tiny smirk. See, that was the mean kid. Huh? She still didn't get it. That first summer day hadn't made nearly as much of an impression on her as it did for Derek. He smiled and waved it off. Just forget about him. I already have. He laughed and Cove smiled lightly. He seemed in a much better mood now that Jeremy was gone. I don't blame him. Jeremy just brings people down. We don't have time for that. Your eyes wandered over to where Jeremy disappeared. You hadn't forgotten the day you met either. He was only going to be in town for vacation with his parents he hated. That glimpse was probably the last time you'd ever see him. You mentioned that realization to everyone, you kept it to yourself, or you broke the group and went after him. No, we're gonna tell everybody. Jeremy's probably gone for good now. It's time for him to go back to wherever he's from. Yeah, I guess we don't have to worry about that guy anymore. Derek kicked a little rock in the road. It clattered forward and then rolled under the stall. But I still think it was kind of sad Jeremy turned out to be, well, like he is. It would have been nice to make another friend. Some friends aren't worth having. Cove shook his head. He was clearly not broken up over what might have been. Good riddance. I think we might want to see him again. No. Maybe he'll be nicer in the future. Probably not. I'm happy it's over or you stayed quiet. Good riddance. Elizabeth rose her eyes at this strange farewell to an odd boy. Not interested in the slightest. She clearly didn't understand his impact, and at this point she didn't want to understand. Jeremy was unlike anyone you ever met before. You thought he was horrible, you thought he was weird, you thought he was stupid, you felt it. You thought he was pitiful, you thought he was okay, you didn't know what to think about him. You thought he was horrible. You and the group moved from stall to stall away from Jeremy. It didn't take long for everyone to return to the joking. You all enjoyed what little time you had left. As Elizabeth mentioned, the hour was almost up. The little trip had flown by, and lunch must be waiting for you now. Derek bounced on the balls of his feet. Come on, guys, let's get going so we can eat. I'm starving. Excuse me. If we have to, I can't wait. Hugh had enough walking around. Homebound we go. Are you not a silent? Homebound we go. Cove stretched one of his arms lazily. Let's go, then. You looked at him appraisingly. You asked Cove to carry you back to the house, you nodded at him. Then you followed Elizabeth as she took it upon herself to lead the way home. She walked fast, much faster than Derek preferred. She kept gaining a lead, and then Derek would jog back up to the group. With Cove's long legs, he had no trouble keeping up. You moved to the front with Elizabeth, you walked side by side with Cove, or you stayed with Derek. We're walking with Cove. You kept close to your neighbor, both chatting about things you'd seen at the shopping street, with Derek chiming in every so often. You caught Cove smiling at you a couple times. He was happy you were spending time with him. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you had made it back. Derek got to the front door and held it open for everyone as you each moseyed in. The three parents were sitting in the kitchen. Oh, they were still in the kitchen. They looked up and waved. Welcome back, everyone. You made it just in time. I hope you're hungry. So, did everyone have a nice time out? She gestured for people to take a seat at the table. Plates and silverware had already been placed out. You took your normal seat. Elizabeth sat across from you, Derek took the seat to your left, and Cove sat to your right. But he blushed a little and began fidgeting with his silverware. Your dad was the first to pick up on his extra awkwardness, but your moms weren't far behind. The parents shared looks at Cove's reaction. It seemed that he was struggling with how to act normal around your dad or your parents, or both, after what happened between the two of you upstairs. Oh yeah, we had a great time. It was fine. Cove shrugged, not willing to say more than that. I really liked it. It was okay, I guess. Yeah, the bank heist went off without a hitch. Your joke got some chuckles from around the table. That's good in my book. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty seat from Cove. He smiled at you and all the other kids. Mom set down a pitcher full of water glasses on the table. She looked down at the gathering. It's a good thing we have 8 chairs. I can't remember the last time we had a group this big over for a meal. Can you pass the water? Can you pass the drinks down to the other side and make sure you all get one? Sure. Those close to the cups obligated and started offering waters around. As you passed Cove his drink, your hands touched. Cove froze. You had already let go, not yet realizing that he was too distracted to function in that moment. The glass fell to the table, landing with a sharp clatter of glass on the wood. Cove scooted his chair back with a restraining shout. I'm sorry, I'll get a towel or something. He looked around in a frantic panic as if the object to soak up water would magically appear if he turned his head fast enough. His dad bit his lip in worry, rising from his own seat. Cove, what's going on? You've been a little out of it today. Well, his mom did leave, you know. Did something happen? Cove tensed, frozen again. He stared at the water on the tabletop as if he wanted to sink into it. You spoke up to cover Cove. You blanked on anything you could say. You admitted what happened between the two of you. They had to find out sometime, or you accidentally blurted it out. This is the worst possible answer, obviously. We'll speak up to cover Cove. If something did happen, you should wait for Cove to want to talk about it. Trying to make him say things in front of everyone won't be good. Mr. Holden nodded slowly. He seemed very worried, but after another look at Cove, he smiled sympathetically. Well said, Jamie. I'm here when you're ready, son. Of course. Cove breathed a sigh of relief and shot you an apologetic look. You shot him a coverted thumbs up. As everything got set up, Ma chided Elizabeth to take her elbows off the table. And you shouldn't slouch. She pointed to Mr. Holden, who was leaning forward with both arms on the table. Oops. Mr. Holden seemed unsure about all the sudden attention and carefully rearranged his posture to something more suitable for a fancy dinner. He smiled sheepishly at Ma. Elizabeth rolled her eyes, and Ma gave her a level look at her. You shouldn't be impolite to a guest in the house either. Elizabeth groaned, long suffering. Ma giggled and Mr. Holden chuckled. The lot of you can learn a thing or two from Derek. He has the best manners here. Derek blushed, but it was true. His posture was upright and formal. He even held his fork gracefully. His table manners were on top of all his attempts to aid your parents made him the model of the meal attendant behavior. It's nothing. It's true, though. You have been a lovely guest. I've noticed that, too. It's always nice having you over, Derek. Derek smiled and sat a little taller in his chair. And do you have anything good to say about our other guest? She looked deliberately at Cove with a teasing smirk. Or is it just there's nothing to say? Well, Cove is my number one, but he still cleans his hands while wiping them on his pants. Come on, Cove. You're too old for that. Cove frowned at that and absentmindedly brushed his hands on his pants legs. Your mom laughed lightly. Elizabeth, you should know after all these years, Cove is hardly a guest anymore. Cove smiled awkwardly. Thanks. Manners, schmanners, who cares? I don't think that's a big a deal. You tease Cove for his bad habit. You complimented Derek on his politeness. You joked that Derek was basically an adult. You kept quiet and took a bite of your food. We'll tease Cove. Don't think I'm gonna let this pants thing go. Cove looked at the window, not wanting to face the truth. Everyone ate their meal together and continued to hang out for the afternoon. After the food, you and the others played a couple games and talked about plans for the upcoming year. The time passed by quickly, and soon it was time to part ways. Mr. Holden talked to your moms, and Cove drifted over to you, knowing that as soon as his dad finished up, he would be leaving. It'd be cool to stay, but we have to step to before everything closes today. Yeah, bye. Could you move? I need the phone. Cove raised an eyebrow, and Elizabeth impatiently gestured behind him. Cove realized he was standing in front of where the receiver was placed. He sidestepped out of the way and shook his head, clearly thinking Elizabeth was rushing too much. Your sister made a beeline for the phone and started dialing the number of who you figured was one of her friends. Knowing Elizabeth, she was going to be on there for a while. You, Cove, and Derek shuffled closer to the door. It seemed like Mr. Holden was wrapping up his conversation, so everyone started saying their various farewells. See you later, Cove. We gotta do this again sometime. Yeah, see ya. Cove turned to you and smiled slightly. Bye, Jamie. You hugged Cove goodbye, you patted Cove on the shoulder, you nudged Cove's shoulder, you ruffled his hair, you waved. Look at my hug. You stepped forward and spread your arms wide. Cove only had a moment to react before encircling you in his arms. Cove took a second to return the hug, surprised. He leaned into you and held on. Then he hovered nearby with a small smile on his face when it ended. His cheeks were slightly red, especially when he looked over and noticed that Derek had been watching the whole thing. Derek smiled amusedly. Seriously, dude, we'll have to hang out again later. I'm gonna miss you during school. He punched Cove's arm softly. Cove still rubbed the spot afterwards. Cove and his dad left soon after that. Your parents started cleaning up the house, and Elizabeth started chatting with her friends on the phone. It was just you and Derek left. He elected to stay outside in front of the house to wait for his dad to pick him up. You decided to keep your guest company, although he was originally Cove's visitor. A light breeze blew through your hair, and Derek shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Thanks for waiting with me. Excuse me. He kicked at the ground distractedly. Dad's still going to be a while, so do you want to go for a walk? Sure, I don't mind. The two of you walked down the street again, just wandering without a destination planned. It was a quiet stroll, too quiet for Derek being the company. You turned to him when you noticed that he wasn't saying a word. That was unusual. Derek always had something he could chat about. You weren't sure if you should ask about it. Somehow you ended at an old park near the beach. You glanced over at Derek once more, still expecting him to say something any second now. However, nothing came to mind. In fact, you noticed a frown creeping on his face. Derek smiled when he realized you were watching. At least his smile was turned up. There wasn't anything that really felt happy in that expression. He turned away and the smile fell off his face. His eyes stared intently at the ground and you raised an eyebrow. Is everything okay? Do you want to talk about something? I'm here. Derek, what's going on? Or you kept quiet? I'll ask him if everything's okay. I'm just a little sad. It's just with school starting back up, it's going to be harder to visit. I'm going to have homework and clubs and practices and everything. It really sucks we go to different schools. His face screwed up and his fists were closed tightly together. This was really concerning him. What if we don't have time? You channeled some optimism into the conversation or you shared your worries? Let's be positive. He's always positive. We'll make time. We can talk over the phone and have plans for the weekend. It'll be okay. Derek looked a little shy, looked up at the sky. It was orange and purple with little wisps of clouds scattering around. A plane flew high with a jet stream chilling behind it. Then he turned to the ground again. Derek's face was tilted up far enough down that it was harder to read his expression. Hey, Jamie. I actually wanted to talk to you about something, if you don't mind. There was a pause, and you waited for him to finish his thought. I was just kind of wondering, do you like guys at all? Like, would you ever want to be with someone who was a boy? Sorry if that's weird to ask. I could be with a guy. Maybe. I don't know. You didn't answer him. I kind of don't want to talk about that. Okay, then. Hesitated before finishing his question. Does he like us? So, yeah, he totally likes us. I was wondering about that when we were in the library. When he got embarrassed when we helped him with that book. So what I mean is there any guy that you kind of think is cool, that you like around here? Not at school or anything like that. Like you? He ducked his head further. You already knew the answer. You had confronted this very topic this afternoon. Well, like Cove? Derek chuckled and looked all that surprised. Yeah, I kind of thought so. That's cool. I really hope things work out. Thanks for answering my random questions. He shot you a thumbs up. Well, thank you, Derek. Even though you were kind of asking for yourself, but, you know. I hope we'll always be friends no matter what. Even if we don't see each other for a long time or we get really busy, I still hope. He cut himself off and met your eyes. There was something serious to him. Sincerely worried that you'd fall out of friendship. I hope so too. I want to be friends forever. We're always going to be friends. I don't know what's coming, or you nodded silently. Yeah, we can be friends. You're cool. Derek smiled mostly to himself. He seemed a little more like the usual. Then for sure, we'll make the most of next year, and then the year after that, and the year after that. He rambled on for a while about things. We'll just have to make the most of every year. Exactly. Right. You smiled, and it felt like your friendship was still strong. You didn't spend much longer at the park after that. Derek didn't want to miss his dad, so you both made your way back to your street. After Derek went home, you decided to settle in for the night. Stretching your arms over your head, you noticed that the living room and the phone were free. You took it easy or called Lee. We'll call Lee. You picked up the receiver and quickly punched in a familiar number while you were going to take a seat on the couch. Soon enough, after explaining the situation to the housekeeper, Lee answered. Lee has a housekeeper? They must have money. Hey! Hey Lee, can we talk? Definitely. We practically have to. Gosh, can you believe it's almost time for school to start? What happened to our summer? School starts first thing tomorrow for me. And I thought starting next week was bad enough. Enjoy your last week. Oh, I will. I hope you survive your first day. Me too, I need a good year. Ditto. And at least summer was nice while it lasted, right? We were busy. Yeah. Fondly, you thought about all the best memories you made this summer. Lee was there for some, but there were still some things you hadn't filled her on yet. You reminisced about your summer, you moved on to her. You began to talk about Miranda's birthday party, the road trip you took, the soiree club, the one with the big shopping trip, when you went to the library, that time you went to Cove's house for dinner, when Cove's mom took you on a wild ride, or that incredibly hot afternoon. Let's talk about the road trip. I went on vacation. Cove's parents ended up inviting my whole family on an RV road trip. Whoa, that's awesome. It was a 3-day trip, and we visited the Redwood National Forest. Lucky. The park was amazing. It was fun hanging out with everyone. I really enjoyed riding in the RV for the first time. Cove was flirting with me on the trip. Cove snuck up into the loft where I was staying, or I almost kissed Cove. You what? When? Start at the beginning. Your face immediately felt like it was burning, knowing there was no closing this can of worms. I can't believe you've been holding on to me with such a juicy story. You have to tell me everything. You could easily imagine the large grin that began to set on Lee's face as she began going into detail on the setup, what happened, and the way it had ended. This was going to be Lee's favorite story for years. You could feel it. I'm so happy for you. Aw, that's so funny and really cute. I know, right? Thanks, but it's not like anything really happened then. That's not what counts. The feelings were there. It was hard to focus on what she was saying. You were distracted just by thinking back on that moment. Okay, and let's talk about... let's see. Let's talk about this one. Remember the hottest day this summer? I could barely do anything, and we had to stay inside the entire afternoon. Although I learned about my mom's, though. My parents acted really embarrassed the whole time. Cove was so hot at his house, he bummed around mine all day, or Cove came over and made sandwiches together. Let's talk about our moms. Did you know Mom likes guys, not just girls? I didn't. Me neither. Oh yeah, that's right. That's so cool. It's so weird. Parents are always there, but there's tons of stuff we never tell you. I know, right? Yeah. I thought there was some... Let me see. Oh yeah, the soiree. That's the one that I wanted, because we're going to talk about our first date. We went to the soiree at Mom's club's country club. There was lots of food, dancing, and people dressed up formally. Oh, I've been to one of those. They're cool, but how did it go for you? Cove was my date. He gave me a flower. Elizabeth didn't come and she stayed home alone. It turned out to be a pretty good night. It was terrible. Cove was my date. No way, you asked about a date like a date? Yeah. Ooh. You laughed a bit. You drove into telling Lee everything about your night with Cove. You enjoyed sharing that memory with her. Okay, let's talk to her now. About her now. What was your big highlight of the summer, Lee? Talking to you is always the best part of my summer. Suck up. Even though It was a phone call. You knew that Lee was winking at you. You laughed, you shook your head. Come on, tell me. Good, I'm glad you picked the right answer. That had Lee laughing hard for a few moments. Alright, so a high point for me was when I took a trip with my parents to Europe. Ooh, I bet that sounded fun. That's amazing. You and Lee continued to talk over your adventures until you both were yawning to each other over the phone. Excuse me. Before you go, there's one other thing. I told Cove I had a crush on him today. Before you go, there's one thing. Cove, I kissed Cove today. Or you knew word about what happened when we get to leave, but you didn't want to bring it up. No, we gotta tell her. We gotta tell her all the details. There's a pause of silence. Knowing your cousin, you decided to pull your ear away from the phone. As expected, a screech loud enough for you to make out clearly from a distance crackled through the speaker. When you felt it was safe, you put the phone back against your head. Lee was still gushing to herself, though a little less loudly. Why didn't you say so sooner? He had to have kissed you back, right? You two are the most perfect-y couple ever. She used the precious little time you had left, filling her in the best you could, and as best you were capable of in the moment. But soon the approach to curfew became too much for you to ignore, despite how excited you both were. After that, you decided it was time to say goodbye for now. You did have school to wake up to in the morning. Bye, Lee. Night, Jamie. Talk to you later. She's cool. I like her. You left the phone on the side table for now. Looking at the clock on the wall, you saw that there was only about 10 minutes until your moms would be insisting you had to go to bed to have enough rest for school. You stretched your legs out on the couch and sighed in defeat, watching the minute hand change 1 minute closer to bedtime. You rearranged yourself, feeling restless, and looking out the window. Startled immediately, you spotted a figure in the hills. It was Cove. When the surprise faded, you realized there wasn't much of a shock at all. It was exactly something he would do. You went outside to meet him, you ran off to go see him, you left him alone, you smacked the window to get his attention, or you opened the window to call out to him. Let's go meet him. Strolling casually, you went to the front door. Hey, look, it's like the fireflies from the first step. When you arrived, you noticed how many fireflies were out that night. They drifted along lazily, barely reminding your presence as you waded through to reach the top of the hill. Cove turned towards you as you approached, and you noticed right away that Cove looked happy to see you. Hey. You had a bounce in your step. You weren't sure how long you'd get before your moms roped you back inside for bed. Hey, what are you doing out here? Nothing really. He shrugged, seeming unhappy with his own answer. You stared at him, waiting for him to continue. Well, I guess I was kind of feeling weird about some stuff, so I'm getting some fresh air before bed. You really should go to sleep. I know how you feel. I feel good. I hope you feel better. You shrugged. You nodded. I know how you feel. It's hard to stay still. Tomorrow's going to be the start of a new year. At the mentioned school, a small noise escaped him. Cove let himself fall back onto his butt and then all the way down, so he was laying on his back. He looked up at the sky. You laid down yourself. You sat in the grass. You stood there. You sat on his chest. We'll lay down too. You lowered yourself to lay back on the hill. He had been lost in thought, or was possibly waiting for you to situate yourself, but he started speaking unprompted again. I'm sorry for being kind of awkward when my mom was leaving. Surprised, you stared at him for a moment. You weren't expecting that. I just wanted you to know that I talked to my dad about how I felt and things. It's okay now. You were genuinely glad to hear that, and it brought a smile to your face. But your thoughts quickly wandered back to the first day you met Mr. Holden. Did his dad confess about that? From the way Cove talked, you guessed he hadn't. So there was more Cove and his dad should talk about, but it was a relief to know that they had made a start. Now was not the time to bring up what you were thinking, though. You could wait a little longer. It was almost unbelievable how much of an impact he made on your life, just by moving in next door. You shouldn't even imagine what your days might have looked like in a world where you hadn't met him. Cove glanced back at you, waiting for a response, and you had no idea what to say. Then, without a word, Cove shook its head strongly. What? It's you. Huh? He snickered before answering. He looked through, amused at your reaction. That's what you do all the time, so I'm being you. He's trying to tease us. You do that all the time too. So do you, Cove. You were stunned he noticed enough to make a note of it. I don't do it that much. Not being able to argue with his assessment, you accepted it or you felt bashful about his joke. So do you, Cove. Really? Yes, always. Cove couldn't help but grin at that. Honestly, there weren't many people you could think of who could teach you about something like that. Returning his smile, you realized there was no denying that you two had been around each other for a long time. Cove broke the quiet before it could finally settle. Hey, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, see you then. With one final wave, Cove headed to bed, but you stayed there for a few moments longer. Your mind kept going back to his simple statement, see you tomorrow. No matter how much was changing around you, there were still some things in your life that always seemed to remain true. The hills felt warm to you that night. Before you knew it, you were getting comfortable under the covers in your room. Your mind couldn't help but be buzzing with thoughts about the future. It was hard not to think about Cove. There hadn't been enough time to figure it out what happened between the two of you. You felt excited, nervous, or unsure. Well, be nervous. Everybody you felt like it was turning into a pretzel. A new chapter of your life was about to begin, and you were worried about what new changes awaited you. Slowly, your eyes grew heavy as you drifted off to sleep, your mind spinning with wishful thoughts. No matter what happened next, you could only hope that you would make the most of it. You were ensnarled in a dream when a noise from outside the window jolted you. Your eyes snapped open, noises happened, you tried to forget it, or you stubbornly kept your eyes pressed shut. We'll open them up. The light clatter continued. Now that you were more alert, you could distinguish it as a tapping sound. Quiet, slow, but persistent. Each beat was like being poked. You couldn't ignore it. You lifted your head from the pillow and looked for the source. Not much work was needed to puzzle it out. It was from the window. With that, you knew exactly what it was. From the color of the light filtering into your room, it was too early for anyone to be awake, including the sun. It barely held itself over the horizon. But what didn't stop some people, it seemed. You sat up in your bed and opened the window wide. Cool air, not yet warmed by the day, tickled your face as it pushed into the room. And just as you expected, there was your neighbor, crouching on your windowsill. He was fully dressed, though not for school. Oh, isn't that cute? He was wearing a wetsuit and a shy smile. Hey, Jamie. You stared back, blinking. So technically we don't go back to school for a few more hours. His voice was delicate yet deliberate, each word a careful explanation. Classes haven't started yet, so do you want to hit the beach one more time with me this summer? That's so cute. Always? Here we go again. It's way too early, Cove. You're crazy. Cove, you're so cute, or you gave it decided not. His smile widened affectionately. That's so adorable. You rushed to get changed into something suitable while Cove climbed down to ground level. Your limbs, still half asleep, struggled somewhat with your attempt to coordinate them into the swimsuit, but you got there in the end. Soon you were tiptoeing out your front door, clutching a towel. Cove was already there to greet you. Your eyes met. Cove's gaze darted to your destination and back to you. You checked the door was closed, gave him a thumbs up, and the two of you leaped into action. Wordlessly, you began to run down the familiar path ahead, Cove beside you. The thrill of your illicit outing made you want to laugh. Not that you dared if anyone in your family looked out and saw you and your summer would be over again. One glance at Cove told you he thought exactly the same, holding back snickers of fear of being caught and heard. The towels streamed out from under you like a cape. You were running so fast downhill that simply keeping your balance and not tumbling down was a real threat. It just wasn't enough of wanting you to make you slow your pace. For every step you took, the beach was a little bit closer, and the day was a little bit brighter. What lay ahead for you would arrive, and you were happy to meet it. In between. Alright, we're going to do this real quick, and then we're going to stop. Okay, we're not going to change anything for me. Oh, done. Duh. And we're going to be in love. And we're going to be... direct. Okay. Yes. And we're not going to mess with Cove's stuff. Real quick, I'll just show you what it looks like. This is what he looks like based on our choices. That's his pajamas. That's his swimwear. And that's his formal wear. I think it looks good. Okay. Since you're romantically interested in Cove and are old enough to start being physically affectionate more seriously, you can choose what initiative level he has throughout Step 3. Make sure the player experiences what is important in our life, but always putting your choice first can potentially make a relationship feel one-sided. So we added some flexibility to how it works. Low initiative means Cove will occasionally ask to touch the MC, and in those situations, there'll always be an opportunity to say yes or no. For example, he won't lean over and kiss you as a greeting in an emotional moment. Every piece of physical interaction will either be initiated or approved by the player beforehand. Middle means that there will be certain times he requests to touch you, many times to initiate affection in your own, and Cove will regularly give out affection. One example would be he might kiss you because he's happy or emotional or something else. And in those situations, you can choose not to make the first move in order to give Cove the space to be the one to act first. Overall, Cove can get romantic, but the player's agency takes priority. High initiative means everything the middle does, but it also means the player will be reduced. That player agency will be reduced to agree in favor of having Cove be affectionate even more frequently and less prompting. Instead of all major affection giving situations led by a choice menu for you to decide on, some will be replaced by Cove acting automatically. This level is only recommended if you're very comfortable with physical affection and prefer to simply see it happen rather than always hold the reins on it. However, this level is reserved if Cove ends up being your official boyfriend. Oh, this is most relevant if Cove ends up being your official boyfriend at some point. Situations where high initiative makes it a different tendency that are exclusive to being in a relationship. This also includes middle initiative, whether you're dating or not. Once you pick your level, it can't be changed later, so make sure you pick the correct one when playing your playthrough. Okay. We're going with high, because I like that stuff. Alright, we're going to stop here. Direct. Okay. We're going to stop here because this begins the next step. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel so when news come out, and I'll see you next time when we start part 3. Well, not part 3. Step 3, which is the final part of the game, where we're grown up, we're adults, and we can officially date someone. But until then, peace out, everybody. Oops, wrong thing.